Hello guys, my name is Eligia. I'm your host as usual. Today I'm with Pamela Clay, who is an entertainer and an artist in many regards. So I want to start by asking you, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. So lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I'm very excited to talk to you because you've had such a cool career and you've done so much. You're not only an actor, but you're also a singer, a great performer. So let's talk about how you got into the industry early on.
Well, I gotta say that the industry chose me more than I chose it, in that I'm an army brat. So every 2 years, we'd move somewhere, and wherever we went, it seemed like the teachers or the church or whomever, they always knew that I could sing and act. And so at age 5, I did my first show. I was in kindergarten, and I remember they erected a stage in the cafeteria, and I wore a blonde wig and a red dress, and I played "My Name's Miss Mary Sunshine," and I just had the best time. And I went, I love this. And as I went along, as we moved from place to place, I would always be in all the shows and the musicals, and then when I was a senior in high school, I got cast as Eliza in My Fair Lady, and it was a very wealthy high school, so we were fortunate. I got to wear the same costumes Julie Andrews did on Broadway, and it was the most amazing experience. And I was definitely bit. I was 17, and I was totally bitten. I must sing, I must act.
That's incredible. that's really cool that you got to wear the same costumes.
I know, it was amazing.
So when you're starting, how much of it do you think, now that you look back, is it talent? Is it preparation? Because you knew you can do it from when you were younger.
I think that, there's a difference between someone who is born with talent and someone who has the ability to take what they have and craft it. And I admire those people very much. And then you have the people that are just sort of like, they just kind of came in like that, and those are the real talented ones. And either way, you can still, quote, make it, because it has to do with, definitely, preparation is so important in this business. If you're going to stand on stage, you got to know your song. It's very important because everyone's expecting you to know your song, and it's the trickiest thing because, once the lights go on and everybody's out there looking at you, you might allow yourself to, your focus to go off a little bit, but you can't. You got to constantly remain committed completely to the truth of what it is that you're bringing forth, whether it's a song or a script. You have to be totally focused and give everything to that, And so as far as, helping kids figure out what to do, I always feel like if you're listening to your heart and you can tell the difference, if a message is coming through, if it's coming from a really good place and it feels really good, follow it. Follow it with all of your trust and all of your faith, and it can't lead you wrong. I just don't think our hearts can lead us wrong,
Yeah, I think you're an example of that. You seem to be doing this for a while now, and it's incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy the way it works because, I'm very spiritual. I was, raised Christian, and I definitely believe in God, believe in Jesus, but I don't necessarily attend church every Sunday. But I definitely feel the Spirit moving through me, and definitely when I'm singing and when I'm acting, it's literally as if I have, and it took me a long while when I was little because I have a very big singing voice, and so the first times, that it would happen and I would sing for people, it would be like this electricity going through my body as if I was plugged into the wall. And so then your knees start shaking and your whole body starts shaking. So I had to learn how to deal with all of that electric force coming through me. And it's tricky in high heels.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to do it in high heels too.
Yeah. I was going to ask you what your relationship with performing live and with the jitters and the excitement and the adrenaline, has that changed for you? How do you turn that?
I am so grateful. If I didn't have the jitters, if I didn't have the adrenaline, I would get out of the game. Because to me, the adrenaline and the jitters is literally, again, by my interpretation, it's keeping you humble. because what can happen sometimes when people have told you all your life, you're so beautiful, you're so great, and then you can kind of walk around believing it. And I just think it's important to know that what people are responding to isn't me, it's my spirit, and I feel like we can help lift each other up that way, sort of in the invisible way. And I can't remember your question.
No,
I
it
think
was about the nerves.
it was okay.
Yeah.
And so the nerves, I'm grateful because it's all energy, and energy is yours, and it's a gift. And if you have energy, then you can transmute it and transform it. From fear to faith, you can flip it in the act of doing it. I do it all the time, because life is scary. Life is meeting a new person is scary.
Yeah.
This can be scary, but you just flip it and you turn it into joy.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. I was going to ask you, so when you're singing, especially when it's a very difficult song, something more operatic, how do you channel that energy in terms of, because I know it affects the way you breathe sometimes. What's going through your head when you're performing?
Boy, that's a really good question. When I'm performing, what's going through my head is I do my best to forget about the material circumstances, because the material circumstances are not important. What's important is what's invisible, and what's invisible is the message of the song, and the feelings that you have, and the feelings that you can create in others. That's what's most important, and that's what you have to focus on. So in terms of what my personal process is I do my best to totally be the singer of the song, if that makes sense. Whatever the song is, that if it's a sad song, that I genuinely experience that sadness, because otherwise it's just words, and it's just a melody, and it's just a voice, and so many great singers aren't really great voices, but they're great singers. It's interesting. It's what you do with your voice, not necessarily what you were born with.
Incredible. Yeah. So when you were out of school, because I know you were trained professionally, when you went into the professional world, what was the first kind of jobs and kind of things that you were working on? Was it in film, or was it?
You won't believe it. You won't believe it. So here I am living with my ex. My ex is a Parisian drummer, Coco Roussel, one of the best drummers in the world. He's actually the drummer in the band with my husband now, who's a guitar player and singer.
That's interesting.
I know, it's so funny, but it's like love is love, right?
Yeah.
So, it was really interesting because he didn't want me to be an actress. I had been a singer when we met, and I wasn't really acting. I'd gone away from acting for a while. And I was living in the D.C. area in Falls Church, Virginia, and a movie came to town, big movie, starring Tommy Lee Jones, and I went, I want to be in that movie, and I found out there was a role of the singer, who was a nightclub singer, and she was also a call girl on the side, which I found out later, but I just knew I had to be in that movie. And at the time, my agents, they were, Dagmar and Carol Ness, Dagmar Wittmer and Carol Ness of Central Casting in D.C. They got me the audition, and I go in there, I meet the director, and I'd just come from a temp job. I was a secretary answering phones and everything. Pamela, you have an audition. I'm like, okay, great. Got in the car and drove over there and everything, got the sides, and when I walked in, I just walked in, and I said, you know what? This isn't an audition, this is just a rehearsal. And I just did it like I was so confident in everything. Plus, I was playing a very hard-boiled hooker. And when my agent called me, they didn't know me at all, really. They just, again, they're looking at all the surface. They go, Pamela, don't use that baby voice that you have. You're playing the part of a hooker. And I was so offended. But of course, I didn't use a baby voice. And I got the job. And so my first big job was working opposite Tommy Lee Jones.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And singing. I got to sing, too.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of, I was looking through your resume, and you have a lot of crossover where you're on TV or, and you're singing.
Yes, it's true. Again, I just sort of feel like I'm spirit-led. I really admire people who go, I'm going to be this by age, whatever, I'm going to do this. For me, I just feel like I'm here to give, and I'm not always sure how that's going to express itself. So I just do my best to just stay in tune with my inner voice And things always happen. Like this just came out of the blue, you know, like, okay, sure, I'd love to come down. But that's the way my life is. You know, it's just a series of, I feel like a box of chocolates. You know?
It's a lovely way to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you also, I read in your bio that you speak French.
I do.
Have you gotten to work a lot in French as well?
I actually got to dub voices for Mel Brooks, for Mel Brooks's film. Gosh, if I can remember the name of it. It's so much fun to do that, you know, and he was so sweet. But as far as speaking in French, not really, but singing, definitely. I wrote an amazing story about the life of Edith Piaf, a one-woman show, which I took to well, at the time it was Feinstein's 54 Below. I don't know if it's just playing 54 Below now, but in New York. Had never sung in New York before, but a friend who was living in New York said, Pamela, my boyfriend just got hired over there at Feinstein's. Why don't you try? And I went, okay. And just sent them my stuff. And people were amazed that they had never met me, and yet I got hired, you know, to do the show there. And I've done it at the Catalina many times here, the Catalina Jazz Club, where I'm going to be Sunday, May 4th. I'm doing a show. I'm so excited. Heart and Soul.
Right here we have the,
yes.
the little
Here's my little
card.
card. Heart and Soul.
Yeah, so when is this? What's the date?
It's Star Wars Day. May the 4th
May
be
the
with
4th.
you. So it's May 4th, 2025 at the Catalina Jazz Club, which is on Sunset Boulevard, just a little east of Highland, on the north side, and the parking's on Las Palmas, right
That's
there.
amazing. Look, you even got the parking instructions too.
I know. Well, we want people to come. It's going to be so much fun.
That's amazing. It looks so fun. And do you do, so I was looking, you do a lot of these types of shows, right?
As many as I can, whenever I can, wherever I can, for whomever I can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that something that you, like, do you sing at home a lot, or you always just
You know what's
warmed up?
funny, Eligia, is that I never sing. Isn't that crazy? I never sing because I'm the middle child of 7, and my mother had 7 children in 12 years. That's a lot of children squished together that all want attention and stuff. And I was singing all the time, and it was usually my older sisters, I think, Mom, can you tell her to shut up? Make her shut up. So I have a terrible fear of bothering people, and it takes a lot of nerve. If I do sing, it's for a short amount of time because I don't want to bother people. So the way I keep my voice in shape is I do all kinds of things in terms of health, and like, for example, whistling. You know, when I walk, I whistle, because when you whistle, your voice gets in the right place. Or if you hum, not humming in your throat, but humming in your nose, like you go. That's great for your voice, because your voice has to be here in this cavity. You got to get it out of your throat.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, because placement is so important, and especially part of style, right?
Yes.
So where do you feel it usually? Where do you, like, when you're warming up and stuff? You have to get it really.
Well, for me, you know, it's definitely in your diaphragm and in your face, you know, in your nose. It just completely bypasses your throat. You know, it's literally. It's almost like playing football. I tell people that singing is so athletic. You know, you have to be in such good shape, you know, to be able to make a good sound.
That's cool. And it's also depending on what you're singing, right? There's songs that you're going to be belting. There's some.
It's tricky. I mean, you know, because I mean, when I started, you know, it's like Janis Joplin, and you know, and so you have to learn, if you want to, sing that kind of stuff, to be able to sing without hurting your voice, and trial and error.
Yeah.
Really trial and error. I mean, when I first started, I was singing like 6 nights a week, you know, or if you're singing on the weekends for a wedding or something, I mean, you always have to have the ability to sing, because people are depending on you, you know, and if you're depending on the money as well, you know, you've got to be able to sing. So I'm really careful. I've been like a health food nut since I was 17, and I quit eating animals when I was 17, and quit drinking alcohol, quit smoking cigarettes, you know, all that stuff that is really a lot of fun to do. But when you're, again, people are counting on you, you just can't afford to risk it.
Yeah, it's your instrument. You gotta like really take care of
I
it.
know.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
So you don't get to have as much fun, perhaps.
No.
But no.
But you are the
Different
fun.
kinds of
you
fun.
are
That's
the fun.
right.
When
We
you,
are the
you
party.
bring the fun.
That's right.
Okay, so I know you also like lived in New York, and then
I did not live in New York.
you
I
worked
lived
in
in
New York.
Paris. The only time I ever worked in New York was when I took my Piaf show to 54 Below.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my sister Nancy, who's also an actor, she lived in New York. But no, I lived in Paris, and I lived in the D.C. area, born in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Then we went to Kansas, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Then Daddy got his Ph.D. in International Relations at Princeton. Daddy was West Point. And then we went to the D.C. area, to North Springfield, Virginia, and Daddy was at the Pentagon. And then we went to Paris, then we went to Germany, and then we came back to Virginia. And then I went to school, University of Kansas, and then my junior year abroad, University of Bordeaux, and stayed there for 8 years. And that's where I met my ex, brought him back here. We got married in my parents' home in Arlington. And like I said, we're still friends. It's just he's not a good husband for me.
Yeah. But it's are you with a musician then?
Oh, my husband and I have been together for 34 years now. Met through an ad and a music connection. Thank you. It's just a miracle. It really is. True love exists, folks.
Yeah. Is there a lot of music talk at home?
Oh, yeah.
Or you keep it separate from?
It's more life talk. Because for me, artists, we're about what's alive and bringing things alive, and again sharing the joy. My husband's also a incredible guitarist and singer and songwriter. He was in the New Christie Minstrels way back when, big band. They played every big room in the world. And he's also an incredible portrait painter. And right now he's painting a friend of ours as a knight in shining armor.
That's incredible. So just all artists.
And my mother was a painter too.
Oh, that's
and
beautiful.
my dad played piano and played trumpet, even though he became a general. What he really wanted to do was be a musician.
Yeah, it's in the blood. You have the artist in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so where does Los Angeles come into play? Because I took you so much for like a Broadway baby.
Oh, you're so, everybody does.
Yeah,
Everybody thinks I've been on Broadway, which is so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
But maybe one day. We see what God has in mind.
Mhm.
But I came out to LA because I had just done the 7-Year Itch with William, what was his name? William Mulcahy, is that his name? Bill?
Maybe that's what I was thinking.
He
New
was
York.
Father Mulcahy.
Yeah.
Father Mulcahy.
Yeah.
He played Bill Christopher. That was his name. Bill Christopher played Father Mulcahy on MASH. And we were in the 7-Year Itch together. I played the Marilyn Monroe part. He played the Tom Mule part. And he kept saying, Pamela, you should come to LA. You should come to LA. And I knew that my husband, my ex-husband, wouldn't go to New York because he's a drummer. He didn't want to have to deal with New York. But LA, it took me 2 years, but I finally convinced him. And then we came out here, and I think about 2 or 3 years later, it was just obvious that, we weren't meant to go the whole road together. And what's crazy is sometimes I know things, and when we were preparing to get married, we got in this big fight. And I said, I don't even know why I'm bothering to marry you anyway, because you're going to end up with that blonde in California. And we'd never talked about going to California. Didn't know a blonde or anything, but I knew that eventually he is, and they are so happy.
Good for them. They got your person too.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I know, she's a dear.
Okay. Oh, that's incredible. So when you moved to California, were you finding more work as a singer, or for the stage, or for film and television? What was like your main thing here? Because it's a different demographic every place you go, right?
Well, I guess back in DC, I had agents and stuff that would always get me jobs, and so the thing coming out to LA is hooking up with an agent, and I was very fortunate to hook up with an agent very quickly, who sent me over to these wonderful people. He was from New York, they were from New York, and he said, they're doing a musical, and I know you're going to be right for it. And I went in there, got the job, and those people became such an integral part of my sense of groundedness here in LA, because LA, I've always said to everyone, I can feel the earthquake territory. It doesn't feel like we're on solid ground. So you put your faith in people and not in the place, and so it's wonderful to have people that help ground you like that. And they were wonderful. Gene and Tony Bua, they had this musical called Pepper Street about teen suicide, longest running musical in LA. And anyway, it was wonderful.
Mm.
And he was also an incredible acting teacher. And then when he passed, she took over.
Mm.
And sometimes when they couldn't make it, I would teach because I love to teach too.
I was going to ask you, you sound very knowledgeable, not just as a singer, but also, like, have you taught before?
I have. I was very fortunate to have studied under Sanford Meisner, if you know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And Sandy, of course, created the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York. And I went up there to audition for him. And he took 15 people. This was the first time he'd ever had people down there. Put a big ad and, backstage and stuff. And I answered the ad and sent him my thing. And he called me in. So I went up to New York from D.C. And I asked him later, because he only chose 15 people out of the hundreds or thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, why did you choose me? Or why did you choose these people? And you know what he said? You know what he said? Because I can trust you.
Wow.
Because acting, what he said was acting is the ability to live truthfully under imaginary circumstances. So if you really believe that your mother died, you don't have to pretend.
Yeah.
But if you're pretending, then you don't touch anyone, because it's fake. It's fake. And we all, human beings, we crave each other's humanity. We want so much we're all pack animals, we all love to sit around in and just hang out in the hot tub together or wherever.
Fire, yeah.
Yeah, we love that. And I think it's important that we maintain great relationships. It's important. It's not just all about the work. It's about, do you have a good life,
Yeah. And I know this is a really hard question, but is there any, one particular project that you worked on that really stood out to you that's been like your favorite, that you cherish memories? Whether it's been, performing in a certain venue or being on a certain film.
Well, I gotta say, that is a really hard question because for me, anytime I work, it's my favorite job. So I can't help but think of when I played Jenny in Three Penny Opera. It was a university production at George Washington University in D.C., but they kept adding nights because we kept selling it out because people were like, oh my God, you gotta come. Then the Kennedy Center comes. The Kennedy Center comes and they ask me to audition. And I'm so excited. And I tell my ex, and he goes, no, if you want to be an actress, I will divorce you. And me, being in this huge family, all these aunts and uncles and cousins, nobody in my family had ever gotten a divorce, ever. And I went, okay, I won't go. And I called the Kennedy Center and I said, I have my sister who's an actress who's wonderful. Can she come? And so I drove my sister Nancy to the audition and sat outside crying. I know. So I can't say that that's a regret per se, because I feel like all roads lead to where we are now. So how could there be a mistake, And it just wasn't meant to be,
Yeah. I do, since we have you as an incredible singer, would you like to maybe bless us with your voice and give us a little taste of
Sure.
maybe even what you're gonna be showing at this?
Okay.
Or anything that you really want to sing.
Let's see. What could I do for you? Well, I mean, everyone always loves when I sing Edith Piaf in French. And so I can sing a little Edith Piaf for
We
you.
would love that.
This is a song that she wrote the lyrics to. Not everyone knows that she was also an incredible lyricist. And she wrote this song about how when you are in love, or I like to think just when you're super happy, you see life through rose-colored glasses, la vie en rose. Des yeux qui font baisser les miens, un rire qui se perce sa bouche. Voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'homme auquel j'appartiens. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. I don't know how much more you want me to go, but
Yeah.
I mean, I would just sing all day for you.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna stop you. I was like, you can keep going. But thank you so much.
Oh,
That
you're
was so
welcome,
beautiful.
Eligia. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Mwah.
Would you let the camera know? I mean, you have this going on, but where
Yes.
can we find you on socials? Where can we find your work?
Okay, on Instagram, Pamela, Pamela, Clay, Clay, Entertainer. That's Instagram. And on Facebook, I'm Pamela Clay. And to find me, if you go to pamelaclay.com, I know that my wonderful webmistress, Priscilla Leona, Priscilla, thank you so much. She has little buttons on there that you can push to find me, to go, chase me on Facebook or Blue Sky or wherever you want to find me.
So much
Thank
work out
you
there.
very much.
Yeah, check it out. Thank you so much for serenading us. That was so beautiful. You can keep going if you want, okay? And thank you to everyone at My TV for watching.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.